The towel dropped from my hands, but I didn't flinch. Her laugh, a dry, hollow chuckle that bounced off the laundry room tiles, hung in the air like mildew. "You're lucky I even let you touch me." That's what she said. Like I was some leper who'd won a raffle. Like decades of providing, fixing, covering her mistakes, and paying off her credit card messes were just some pathetic tribute she tolerated out of politeness. She turned, humming, tossing her blouse into the dryer like nothing had happened. I just watched her. Not angry, not even sad. Something quieter, sharper. I folded the last t-shirt, that old one from the state fair we went to, before her veneers, before her Pilates instructor with the stupid name, before she stopped asking how my day was. I folded it with more care than I'd handled her in months. Then I placed it neatly on the stack and walked out. In the hallway, I heard her phone buzz. A giggle. Another message. Another little compliment from whoever she thought was her escape hatch. Her voice changed when she texted lately. Eerier, like she was suddenly 20 again. I used to like that sound. Now it just reminded me how good liars always enjoy the setup. I passed the hall mirror and looked at myself. Wrinkled, maybe slower than I was at 40, sure. But I built machines that could carve titanium to half a human hair's width. I ran a team of 20 men who didn't dare miss a measurement. I wasn't some slob hoping for scraps of affection. But in this house, I was a placeholder. And placeholders don't argue. We execute. Downstairs, in my office, I opened the drawer that hadn't been touched since the day I printed out her client meeting calendar from iCloud and noticed it included one too many Tuesday dinners at the Burstone Hotel. Conveniently, never billed to the brokerage account. Inside the drawer was the box. Small, smooth oak, brass hinges. I'd carved it myself years ago. It was supposed to hold cufflinks. Instead, it was going to hold something far more valuable: clarity. I set it on the desk and opened my laptop. No rush. No drama. Just a man doing what he always did: cataloging, protecting, cleaning up someone else's mess. The folder was still there, waiting for the day she smirked. First came the emails, forwarded flights, unbilled dinners, a fun weekend in Ridge Hill from her realtor friend Celeste, dates that matched her supposed training retreats. Then the texts. She never realized I'd synced her phone to the family iPad months ago. Thought it was just for Netflix. One thread stood out. "Can't wait to see you outside the sheets for once, LOL." He responded with a selfie, shirtless, hotel bathroom mirror. Funny thing about betrayal, it has a smell. And the Burstone always smelled like lavender and stale desperation. I started printing. Email after email, text after text. Each one dated, labeled, and slid into a neat pile. Chronology matters when you're dismantling someone's sense of safety. Because I wasn't going to confront her with accusations. I was going to bury her with evidence. She came downstairs later that night, makeup off, wrapped in that smug little robe she wore when she wanted to play the affectionate wife. "You didn't say good night," she said, fake concern painted over her tone. "I figured you were tired of touching me." I replied, smiling just enough to make her wonder if I was joking. She blinked, but the moment passed. "You're being dramatic," she muttered. I nodded slowly, like a man who didn't mind being underestimated. Because men like me, we don't need second chances. We need evidence. She didn't bite. She padded back upstairs, the scent of her overpriced lotion trailing behind her. I waited until the house was silent. 11:17 p.m., right on schedule. Her tablet slipped from her chest as she slept, some real estate podcast droning on about market trends she couldn't explain without her assistant's notes. Back in the office, the oak box sat in the center of the desk. Still empty. Not for long. The printer spat out the last of the emails: hotel confirmations, dinner receipts, location tag selfies she sent him between board meetings. A contractor we once hired to fix the deck. Of all people, I'd offered him a beer. He'd thank me like a son. I scrolled through more texts. He's nice but dull. A placeholder. My life started late. Dull. Placeholder. I let my knuckles rest on the desk until the whiteness faded, then hit Save All, and dropped everything into a USB folder labeled June Justice. Encrypted, backed up, copied 3 times. One flash drive. One cloud. One place she'd never think to look. This wasn't about rage anymore. Rage burns out quick. This was about precision, the kind of cold patience that turns a crack into a canyon. When I finally went upstairs, she shifted in her sleep and murmured something I couldn't catch. I stood there for a second, watching her. Not out of love, not even hate, just taking in the fact that she had no idea the ground beneath her was already moving. The next morning, she floated into the kitchen in yoga pants and a messy bun, humming that same tune from the 2000s she played on repeat when she thought she was still in her prime years. "Morning," she said, leaning over to grab a mug. "Morning," I replied, sliding her the coffee I'd already poured. Her guard always dropped when I acted normal. People like her expect confrontation, they rehearse for it. What they never expect is calm. While she scrolled through her phone, I set my phone face down on the counter, screen quietly recording. "You've been working late a lot?" I said casually, slicing an apple for my breakfast. "Yeah, the market's crazy right now. Everyone's desperate to buy before the rates spike." Her voice didn't even waver. She was good, but good liars always forget the small stuff. I nodded like it made sense. "You're good at juggling it all." That earned me a little smirk. She liked praise, even fake praise. After breakfast, I left for an early meeting that didn't exist. Instead, I parked 2 blocks from the Burstone Hotel and waited. By 9:47 a.m., her silver SUV pulled into the lot. She stepped out in heels I hadn't seen in years, phone glued to her ear, and disappeared inside. I took the photos slowly. Wide shots, clear license plate, time-stamped. A man joined her at the entrance. Not the contractor this time, a different one. This wasn't just an affair. It was a rotation. By noon, I was back home, downloading the shots into the June Justice folder. Then I deleted them from my phone. Always assume your enemy knows where to look. That evening, she came home all smiles, dropping her purse on the counter. "You'll never guess, Celeste wants me to go to another weekend retreat. Says it'll be great for networking." "Sounds fun," I said, keeping my tone flat enough to be forgettable. She kissed my cheek like I was some sweet, harmless fool. And in that moment, I knew exactly when and where she was going to learn that I wasn't. Friday morning, she left with a suitcase big enough for 2 weeks, but told me she'd pack light because she might shop while she was gone. I offered to carry it to the car for her, partly to be the doting husband, mostly to note the luggage tag, Burstone Conference and Spa. That was all I needed. "Don't wait up for me," she said, leaning in for a perfunctory peck. "Wouldn't dream of it," I replied. The moment she turned the corner, I was already moving. See, I had no interest in storming into her hotel room or catching her red-handed for some dramatic scene. That's amateur hour. I wanted her to keep thinking she was safe, that she was clever. The longer she believed she had control, the deeper she'd bury herself. Step 1. I called in a favor from a friend who owed me. He works for a private courier service, high-end, the kind that moves confidential contracts and prototypes between corporations. I asked him to deliver a sealed envelope to her hotel room that afternoon, with her name handwritten on the front. Inside, a single printed photo of her SUV in the Burstone parking lot from earlier that week, timestamp clear as daylight. Step 2. I packed my own bag and drove to the next town over. Checked into a business hotel under a name she wouldn't recognize. From there, I could watch everything without being anywhere near her. Technology is a beautiful thing when you know how to use it. By early evening, I got the first update. My courier buddy texted, "Package delivered. Front desk said she was already checked in." Gave it to a tall guy in a polo who answered her door. Tall guy, not the contractor, not the guy from the hotel photos. Interesting. About 2 hours later, she called me. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. This time I picked up, letting my voice carry a mix of confusion and warmth. "Hey, you okay?" "Yeah," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Just thought I left my charger at home." "Did you see it?" That was her testing the waters, trying to see if I was in town, if I might have been the one who delivered the photo. "Haven't seen it," I said, "but I can grab you one tomorrow if you want me to swing by." Silence. Then, No, it's fine. I'll manage." She was rattled, but not enough to stop. Perfect. The next morning, while she was busy networking, I sent her an email from a burner account. The subject line read, "We need to talk about Ridge Hill." No message body, just the attachment, another photo of her and the contractor at the Burstone bar, his hand a little too low on her back. I timed it for exactly 10:02 a.m., right in the middle of her breakout session. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from her. "You're acting weird. We'll talk when I get home." Good. Let her think I was acting weird. That meant she was looking for the wrong kind of threat. Anger, confrontation, when the real one was still in the shadows. By Sunday afternoon, she came home all sunshine. The suitcase was lighter now, probably because she'd left half of her dignity at the birthstone. How was it? I asked, sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open. Productive, she said, setting the suitcase by the stairs. Made some great connections. I nodded, eyes still on the screen. Glad to hear it. That night, she was more affectionate than usual, an old trick of hers after doing something she thought I might eventually find out about. She even cooked dinner, like a peace offering I hadn't asked for. I ate it. I even complimented it. People let their guard down faster when they think they've already been forgiven. Over the next week, I let little hints slip. A casual, "Oh, I drove past the Burstone the other day, funny place." Or, Celeste sure likes scheduling retreats. Each time, her eyes flicked up at me, searching for meaning. I gave her none. Meanwhile, the June Justice folder grew. Bank transfers to a joint account she didn't know I'd closed. A second phone bill with numbers she thought were hidden. Screenshots of her location history. My lawyer, Marcus, called me on Thursday. "You ready to go nuclear?" he asked. "Not yet," I said. "I want her to dig a little deeper. The fall's better when there's more to lose." By Friday, she was back to her old rhythm. Late showings, mystery dinners, the works. I shadowed her once. Not to confront, but to confirm. Sure enough, she met tall guy again. Same bar, same touchy-feely routine. The following Monday, I left the oak box open on my desk, empty but centered, like it was waiting for something. I made sure she saw it when she came in to ask if I'd seen her keys. "What's this?" she asked. "Just a project," I said. She didn't press, but she looked at it twice before leaving. I could tell her brain was already working overtime, trying to figure out if it was about her. Good. Let her stew. That weekend, she announced she was going on another retreat. This time to Ridge Hill, the place from the burner email. She said it like she was daring me to question it. I didn't. I just smiled and told her to have fun. But while she was gone, I made my move. I called every one of her contacts in my evidence pile, contractor, tall guy, even the guy from the old photos. Introduced myself as Vanessa's husband and thanked them for helping her during our open marriage. Each one reacted differently. Some hung up, some denied, some stammered, but all of them knew now that she wasn't the mastermind she thought she was. By the time she came home, the ripples were already spreading. She was jumpy, her phone lighting up every few minutes. She kept sneaking glances at me like she was waiting for the explosion. It didn't come. Not yet. Instead, I poured her a glass of wine and said, "We should go somewhere together. Just the two of us. Clear the air." She smiled, relieved. Thought she was reeling me back in. She didn't know the place I had in mind wasn't for reconciliation. It was for the reveal. And I was going to make sure she never saw it coming that we left on a Friday morning. The air cool enough that she packed her faux fur coat, the one she only wore for special occasions. I let her pick the playlist for the drive. She went with soft pop ballads, the kind that pretend to be about love but are really about regret in disguise. "This place has a spa, right?" she asked, leaning back in the passenger seat with her sunglasses on. "Spa, fine dining, great views," I said. "You'll love it." And she would, right up until the part she wouldn't. The resort was an old stone estate that had been converted into a boutique hotel. Cozy, intimate, with a dining hall that overlooked the valley. I'd chosen it for the view, but not the scenery she thought. We checked into a corner suite with a fireplace and a private balcony. She made a show of admiring the room. "This is nicer than I expected," she said, turning in a slow circle. I just smiled and set her suitcase by the dresser. "Why don't you take a hot bath? I'll unpack." While she soaked in bubbles and eucalyptus steam, I laid out the evening's stage. Dinner was booked for 7 p.m. I made sure she had her favorite wine chilling, her coat hanging by the door, and, most importantly, that she didn't see me slip the small oak box into my overnight bag. At 6:50, we walked into the dining room. She looked radiant, confident, a woman convinced her husband was finally trying to reconnect. She ordered the lobster ravioli and told the server we'd be celebrating a fresh start. Halfway through the meal, I excused myself to use the restroom. Instead, I walked to the lounge where Marcus, my lawyer, was waiting. He handed me an envelope, thick and weighty with finality. I slid it into my jacket pocket and returned to the table. "What was that?" she asked. "Just checking on dessert," I said, which wasn't entirely a lie. Because dessert was coming, it just wasn't on the menu. At 8:10 p.m., right as we were finishing a shared slice of cheesecake, the maitre d' approached our table. "Mr. and Mrs. Harlow, you have guests in the lounge." Her brow furrowed. "Guests? Must be a surprise," I said, gesturing toward the door. She walked ahead of me, heels clicking softly against the floor. When we entered the lounge, 3 men stood waiting. Contractor, tall guy, and the man from Ridge Hill. Her face drained of color faster than I'd imagined. "What is this?" she whispered. I stepped past her, shook each man's hand like I was welcoming them to a business meeting. "Gentlemen," I said, "thank you for coming." The contractor glanced at her, then at me. "You said you wanted to clear the air?" "That's right," I said, pulling the oak box from my bag and setting it on the table between us. I opened it slowly, letting the brass hinges creak. Inside was a neat stack of documents, time-stamped photos, text transcripts, bank statements, and signed affidavits from every man she'd been networking with. "Everything in here," I told them, "is a record of my wife's extracurricular activities. I wanted you all to see that she's been telling each of you a different version of the same story, and that while you were busy playing the hero, she was playing all of us." She stammered. "You're twisting things." "No," I cut in. "This is what happens when you underestimate a man who actually listens. When you mistake patience for weakness." Tall guy cleared his throat. "Wait, you told me you were separated." She shot him a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "We are," I smiled. "Not legally, not financially, not in any way that matters, until now." I pulled the envelope from my pocket and placed it next to the box. "Divorce papers. Already filed. With enough evidence to make sure you leave with exactly what you came in with. Nothing." The Ridge Hill guy snorted. "Wow, you really are something, Vanessa." He turned to me. "For what it's worth, I had no idea." "I believe you," I said. "She's very good at making people think they're the only one." Her voice rose. "You think you can humiliate me like this?" "No," I said, stepping closer. "I can prove what you are." And I just did. The contractor backed away. Tall guy muttered something about needing a drink and left. Ridge Hill followed. She stood frozen, eyes darting between the oak box and the envelope. "You won't get away with this," she said finally. "I already have," I replied. I picked up the box, slid it back into my bag, and turned toward the door. She stayed rooted to the spot, too proud to chase me, too stunned to speak. Back in the suite, I packed my things, left her suitcase by the door, slipped the room key onto the desk with a note. "Checkout's at 11. Marcus will be in touch." Then I walked out into the night, the cool valley air washing over me like a clean slate. I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because by the time she returned to the empty suite, the ripples I'd set in motion would already be reaching the shore. And this was only the beginning. By Monday morning, the phone call started. Not to me. Vanessa wouldn't give me the satisfaction of a direct line, but to Marcus. He forwarded me the transcripts. "The contractor, I don't want to be dragged into this. I've got a business to run. Tell him I'm sorry." Tall guy. "She told me you two were done. Look, I don't need legal trouble. I'll sign whatever he wants." Ridge Hill. "Honestly, I should have seen this coming. Do I need to talk to his lawyer too?" One by one, they weren't just leaving her. They were building my case without even realizing it. Vanessa, meanwhile, went into damage control mode. She showed up at my office mid-morning in a silk blouse and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. My receptionist buzzed me. "Your wife's here," she said, careful to keep her tone neutral. I stepped into the lobby. "Vanessa." She tilted her head. "We need to talk. Privately." I gestured toward the conference room. She walked in like she owned the place, but her eyes kept scanning the corners, checking for cameras. "Maybe. Good instinct." "You blindsided me," she started. "That stunt at the hotel? Completely uncalled for." I leaned against the table. "Uncalled for? You paraded half the county through your personal buffet line. I just introduced them to each other." She rolled her eyes. "You're being theatrical. We can settle this quietly. No lawyers. No public scenes. We'll split things 50-50. I'll keep the house. You keep your pride." I smiled, slow and deliberate. "Vanessa, you don't have 50% anymore. You don't even have 5. That got her attention. "What's that supposed to mean?" I opened my briefcase and slid a folder across the table. "These are the revised financials from last month. See those transfers? Those weren't random. I moved every liquid asset into protected accounts with my name only. The brokerage? Closed. The joint savings? Emptied, legally. She flipped through the pages, her breathing quickening. You can't just. I can, I said. And I did. Because while you were busy building your little rotation, I was building a firewall. You've been living in a house you don't own, driving a car I leased, spending on credit cards tied to my business accounts. Which, by the way, you're no longer authorized to use. Her mouth opened, then closed. For once, she didn't have a quick retort. I'm not doing this to hurt you, I added. I'm doing it to make sure you can't hurt me anymore. She pushed the folder back toward me like it was toxic. You think you've won? People will take my side. You've always been cold. They'll say I had reasons. Let them, I said. Because reasons don't erase receipts. She stood abruptly. You're pathetic. I almost laughed. No, Vanessa. I'm prepared. She stormed out, heels clicking like gunshots on the tile. My receptionist gave me a look, the kind you give someone who's just walked out of a burning building unscathed. By midweek, word had started to spread. Not because I told anyone, but because the men she'd juggled couldn't keep their mouths shut. One by one, mutual friends reached out with variations of, I had no idea, and she really told me you two were separated. I didn't correct them. I didn't need to. Her reputation was unraveling without me lifting a finger. On Thursday, Marcus called again. She's trying to stall. Wants mediation instead of litigation. Not happening, I said. We go full court. He chuckled. You're enjoying this. Not enjoying, I said. Executing. That night, Vanessa sent me a text, the first direct contact since the hotel. We need to talk. Meet me tomorrow at the house. 8 p.m. I knew better than to walk into her territory without a plan. So at 7:59, I pulled into the driveway with my phone recording and Marcus on standby. She was waiting in the kitchen, wine glass in hand. You really think you're going to win? She asked. I don't think, I said. I know. She set the glass down. I can make this ugly. I raised an eyebrow. You think it isn't already? She leaned against the counter. You've made me look like the villain. But I've got messages too. Conversations where you're less than affectionate. Times you've been gone for days without explaining. I can spin this. I almost smiled. Vanessa, if your best defense is that I wasn't home enough to interrupt your affairs, you're welcome to try. Her jaw tightened. You're colder than I thought. That's the thing about cold, I said. It doesn't burn out like heat. It stays. She stared at me for a long moment, maybe searching for some crack in the armor. When she found none, she reached for her wine. You're going to regret this. I turned to leave. I already regret wasting this much time on you. Everything else is just paperwork. As I stepped out into the night, I realized something. This wasn't about revenge anymore. Revenge is hot, fast, emotional. This was about dismantling her life piece by piece until the only thing left was the truth she'd been hiding from everyone, including herself. And I wasn't done. Not by a long shot, by the next week, she'd made her move. A Facebook post. A long, performative essay about emotional neglect and being forced to seek companionship elsewhere. It had just enough detail to make the story sound believable to people who didn't know better, and just vague enough to avoid outright libel. Comments poured in from her inner circle. Stay strong, girl. Nobody knows what goes on in a marriage but the people in it. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Instead, I had Marcus quietly email a PDF to every one of our mutual friends who'd commented in her defense. The file? A condensed, time-stamped dossier of her activities, names, dates, receipts, photos. Each email ended with the same line. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to the truth. By Thursday, her post was gone. By Friday, the phone call started again, this time from her. I didn't answer. The divorce hearing was set for mid-month. She walked in with a new lawyer, a fresh blowout, and the same air of superiority she'd worn for years. When the judge asked for preliminary evidence, Marcus handed over a thick binder. Your Honor, Exhibit A through Z. Her lawyer objected. Overruled. The first 20 minutes were a quiet slaughter. Financial records, hotel bookings, the works. But it was the last piece that broke her. Marcus slid a photo across the table. It was from the hotel lounge. Her, standing between the contractor and tall guy, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. The timestamp was the exact night she'd told me she was at a client dinner. She stared at it for a long time, the color draining from her face. The judge didn't say much, just made notes and moved to the next item. But I saw it. that tiny slump in her shoulders. The first time she realized she wasn't walking out of this as the victim. 2 days after the hearing, she sent me a single-line email. "You've ruined me." It was tempting to reply. I didn't. Instead, I logged into the brokerage account she no longer had access to. Transferred a small sum, not to her, but to each of the men in my evidence file. Along with the transfer came a note. "For the inconvenience. You were just pawns in a bigger game." I didn't care if they kept it, returned it, or burned it. I cared that she'd hear about it. And she did. Within 48 hours, she was sending me furious, rambling messages about how I'd humiliated her all over again. The beauty of it? I hadn't said a word publicly. She was doing all the talking. All the damage now came from her own mouth. The settlement came fast after that. The house went to me. The account stayed in my name. She got her clothes, her car lease, and a small stipend that would expire in 90 days. On her last day in the house, she walked past me with a box of her things. "You're a cold man," she said, pausing at the door. I nodded. "And you're out of moves." She left without looking back. 3 weeks later, I mailed her one final package. Inside was the oak box. Still smooth. Still polished. Inside it, just one item, a folded note. It read, "For years, you thought you were the one keeping secrets. Turns out, I was just better at it." That was the last time I ever reached out to her. Some people want a screaming match, others want an apology. I wanted her to live with the quiet knowledge that every time she'd thought she was winning, she was actually playing a game I'd already finished. And that was the real revenge.